Oh, this is going to be a good one.
That's underway, just like the other question that's illogical. And I've heard you speak about it because you always, I'm not being solicitous, but you're always straight up about what you're doing. Yeah. And the question is whether or not we should be in a position where you are, why can't the experts say, we know that this virus is in fact it's going to be, or excuse me, we know why all the drugs approved are not temporarily approved, but permanently approved. Yeah. That's underway, too. I expect that to occur quickly.
Well, that means you mean for the FDA?
For the FDA. Yeah.
Yes, that is the current U.S. president desperately trying to form a coherent sentence and failing miserably. This is the, quote, leader of the free world. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudkowski of WeAreChange.org. Lots of utter lunacy and nonsense to get into today as the Bush-Light administration, the Biden administration continues to push through absolutely miserable policies that are absolutely backwards. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more, along, of course, with the latest updates about the story of the decade that many powerful people and mainstream media elites want to go away. We'll make sure that doesn't happen. But before we do that, plus a lot more, the clip we played in the beginning of the broadcast was from last night's town hall on CNN, where Joe Biden addressed the nation and literally told a desperate, failing restaurant owner to pay more to his staff in order to solve his problems. This as Biden, by and large, downplayed inflation because, quote, the economy is recovering, and he also predicted that there will be a, quote, bind over the labor shortages. And then he went on to promise more handouts and went on to say this.
Past the other two things I'm trying to get done, we will, in fact, reduce inflation. Reduce inflation. Reduce inflation.
Yes, because nothing says reducing inflation like trillion-dollar bills that will, of course, just mass print more money out of thin air. And we're already seeing the short-term effects, not even the long-term effects yet, of runaway government spending. And now this man wants to spend trillions more, which obviously creates inflation and is a tax against people's personal savings. All the money you worked hard for, all the money you saved up, it's literally being devalued right in front of your eyes. Biden also said some clearly wrong things about medical policy that we're going to be talking about later. In related lunatics lying to the American people news, we have House Democrats that just made sure to block and stop efforts so the American people could find out where the sickness last year originated. Yes, there was a bill on the House floor that would declassify intelligence surrounding where the sickness from last year came from. The House Democrats block that, preventing it from going through. Why are the House Democrats essentially protecting and hiding information from the general public that might potentially cast a bad light on China? Well, that's a very serious question that deserves to be answered. And as the House Democrats block every single effort for transparency and accountability, their main focus is, of course, on the events of January 6th, which, of course, they are fully investigating. This as Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, just announced that she will not tolerate two Republicans joining the commission because, quote, she doesn't want to deal with their antics. Again, this witch hunt commission is becoming more partisan by the day, and more it looks like a massive cover-up effort since, of course, there are some very serious questions about what happened on January 6th, like why did the intelligence agencies fail to do anything when they knew this was going to happen? Why did requests for extra police and security be turned down last minute? Why did police officers allow people into the building? Why is there thousands of hours of video footage being kept away from the general public? And what was the involvement from the FBI, as we're finding out that many FBI informants played a key role in not only planning but executing the events of January 6th. You know, serious questions that, of course, are not being asked, and they most likely will not be asked, especially with Nancy Pelosi making sure that no one can ask them. Also, as all of this is happening, we got word from the communist Chinese government that they are officially refusing to cooperate with the World Health Organization's investigation into the origins of last year's sickness, saying that an inquiry, an experiment looking into where all of this came from is, quote, against science and a, quote, conspiracy theory. This, as we also just got a new report today that China has built enough detention facilities to detain 1 million Uyghur Muslims at once. This, according from reports coming from BuzzFeed News, that found 206 million square feet of space to detain Chinese dissidents in the Xinjiang province. And that's absolutely terrifying news and shows you what happens when governments remain unaccountable and are just blindly given authority. In related unaccountable people who have too much power news, one of the Texas state Democratic representatives who was on a maskless flight that has spread the sickness that was a super spreader event in Washington, D.C., is now unironically calling for universal mask wearing. Yes, Donna Howard unironically tweeted recently calling for more government intrusion into your daily lives for universal mask wearing rules that would be implemented by, of course, the top-down authority figures, specifically even highlighting the need for children to do so. And the Biden administration is considering doing this federally. We're going to talk about this, but before we do, we're going to have a bigger discussion about this topic, plus a lot more, specifically on LukeUncensored.com, and we need to have that because YouTube doesn't allow to have conversations about some hot-button issues. YouTube actively deletes the speeches of the former president of the United States and now has expanded its reach and is deleting videos from the current president of Brazil. Why are they doing that? We can't even tell you. We're going to be talking about it on LukeUncensored.com, along with the latest joint venture by Bill Gates and no one other than George Soros, along, of course, with very bizarre statements that we're seeing from many prominent Republicans like Ben Shapiro, Mitch McConnell, Florida Governor DeSantis, Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Why are they all saying the same thing right now? Well, we're going to be talking about that on LukeUncensored.com. Lots to get into on our own secret society, or some people say cult. Potato, potato. Doesn't matter. Lots of important information, and the only place where we could share it is on that website. Click the link on the description below so you could find out more. Now, I started this show talking about how the Biden administration is essentially the Bush light administration, and when you look at almost every single policy that they're instituting, it is almost absolutely the same. It is just as backwards, just as counterproductive, just as ridiculous, and if you exchange the war on terror to the war on people who might question the establishment narrative and agenda, it's almost identical. When we look at foreign policy, we of course still have the same continued backwards, overly aggressive policies that absolutely have no benefit to the American people, as the United States just moments ago launched an airstrike that has killed 3 people in Syria. Why? What? What's the reason we're doing this? No explanation was given. The Biden administration just announced that they are imposing new sanctions on Cuba since, issuing sanctions have worked. Said no one ever, as of course sanctions predominantly hurt the poor and middle class people in a country, absolutely devastating the local population. And when it comes to the specific countries of North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, it only exacerbates the problem, which of course will continue to get worse. And now, not to outdo itself, the Biden administration is literally reconsidering bringing back mask mandates and lockdowns. I'm not kidding you. This is the conversations that they're having right now. As of course, the new science advisor to the Biden administration, the man that is literally shaping the country's response to the sickness, the Biden science advisor is, of course, an associate of Jeffrey Epstein, the same Jeffrey Epstein that, of course, the media, the government, local police departments, intelligence agencies all colluded with and worked with, carefully protecting, as of course this man rampaged and had his way with thousands of children all over the world, all under the watchful eye of the authority figures that now want more control of your life. Yes, the people that condoned, that facilitated, that your tax dollars went into hurting children in unspeakable ways, now want to be in charge of your existence. And to me, that is absolutely ridiculous. And until we get answers about this important saga, this important story, there's absolutely no reason to believe the same institution, the same establishment that made this happen ever. There has never been justice for the victims here. There most likely never will be. The full story, we still do not know it, but we're getting little tidbits, little insights from the information that is still coming forward today about the story of the decade, as there is a new book called Perversion of Justice that details how the prison cellmate of Jeffrey Epstein, according to some accounts, was trying to help Epstein, according to other accounts, was responsible for his demise. We're also finding out that his cellmate had an illegal cell phone with him in jail. The government destroyed that cell phone afterwards and is not releasing its contents of what was on it. Still to this day, government officials and authorities have not released a report of their investigation into what actually happened here. We still do not know. Basic protocol was not followed. Video footage evidence was destroyed, highlighting just how severely corrupt the entire establishment is, and it is absolutely sick and disgusting, as we're finding out new details that Epstein was mainly going after grieving and vulnerable children. Specifically, according to some accounts, the first of which happened at a Michigan arts camp where Epstein built himself a lodge on the campus, which he donated large sums of money to and was able to prey on young children there. And this report is coming from 1994. It's also important to note here that the FBI knew of Epstein and his horrible actions in the 1990s and decided not to do anything with the victims that came forward. Imagine just how brazen this man is, that literally he builds cottages at children's campgrounds with the full support and backing of the FBI protecting him. We're also learning more details about the royal connection with Epstein, as we have new information that alleges that Prince Andrew actually even lived with Jeffrey Epstein at his townhouse, spending a very long time with Epstein, which he publicly claimed he didn't know that well, even though he also publicly claimed that he had to visit him in person in order to end his friendship with him, as of course he was hanging out and partying with him when everyone knew of his misdeeds. It's also important to note here that Bill Gates, who as of many reports was not able to court women successfully, was also hanging out with Epstein for a very long time, a lot longer than original media reports implicate. There's still so many prominent, powerful individuals, whether it's Leon Black, Les Wexner, Jean-Luc Brunet, Bill Clinton, you name it. This man had absolutely cozy and very disturbing relationships with that we can only imagine how far they went. Professional journalists that are investigating this can't even get any answers here, as Yahoo has a very interesting article that's entitled, quote, "The journalist who brought down Jeffrey Epstein still has questions that drive her crazy." Now, it's important to note here, the people that brought down Epstein were a large number of victims, were a large number of people who were hurt here, were a large number of people who whistleblowed officially, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back that finally broke this story wide open after the government facilitated for over 30 years the hurting of children in unspeakable ways that was paid for by your tax dollars. And I'm sorry, with the federal government doing that, there's absolutely no reason to trust them until we get actual answers to what the hell was going on here, because still, the little disturbing picture that we have is still just, I would say, 1% of what actually was going on that we still don't even know about. If you care about the truth, and if you want more information about this, if you want to push this issue further, share this video with your friends and family members, just like the hashtag Jeffrey Epstein didn't himself, because the only thing still continuing to make this story alive, to keep this story going, to pursue justice for the victims, is literally us spreading the word about it, and that is absolutely critically important. And because you guys still do that, this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.